January 12, 1945. 17 p.m. Stone Farmhouse, 4 miles north of Bastogne. Staff Sergeant James Donovan kneels on the frozen floor, hands locked behind his head, staring at the worn wooden planks beneath him. 47 German soldiers stand in formation around the room, all of them armed, all of them watching. 18 American GIs kneel in rows beside Donovan, their breath clouding in the frigid air. These Germans were prisoners 90 minutes ago. 47 men captured 3 weeks prior, guarded in this farmhouse by Donovan's undermanned platoon. Now, the weapons have changed hands. Oberleutnant Friedrich Müller circles behind Donovan, stops, presses the muzzle of a Luger P-08 against the base of his skull. The metal is cold even through Donovan's wool cap. Müller barks an order in German, sharp, deliberate, final. Donovan doesn't speak German, neither do any of his men. Müller shouts again, louder. His voice cracks with something between authority and desperation. Around the room, German rifles rise to shoulders. Safeties click off in sequence. Donovan keeps his eyes on the floor, counts the knots in the wood grain. 1, 2, 3. His breathing stays steady. His shoulders drop half an inch. Not surrender, but the posture of a man who's already made his choice and is waiting for the right moment. He glances left without moving his head. Private Billy, 19 years old, barely shaving, kneels 3 feet away, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. The kid's whole body trembles. Donovan's right hand shifts, just slightly, fingers stretching toward his boot. Müller screams again. The Luger digs harder into Donovan's skull. Donovan's jaw tightens. His eyes close for one long breath. Then his hand moves. What happens next takes less than 30 seconds. 14 Germans die. 2 Americans don't make it out. But 16 men walk away alive because one cautious sergeant finally stopped waiting for a better moment that was never going to come. To know more about World War II stories and the heroes, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. December 18, 1944. Southampton Docks, England. Rain hammers the transport ship. James Donovan stands at the railing watching 800 paratroopers board in the darkness. He's 32. Too old for this. Everyone else is 19, 20, maybe 22. Boys who volunteered to jump out of planes. Donovan didn't volunteer for anything. He was a supply clerk in London, good with numbers, good with requisition forms, good at staying alive behind a desk, while younger men died in hedgerows across France. Then someone in personnel made a decision. The 101st Airborne needed non-coms for a winter push into Belgium. Experienced sergeants. Donovan had experience, 10 years in the Pennsylvania National Guard before the war, weekend warrior stuff, never fired a shot in anger. But the Army didn't care about details. 3 weeks ago, they handed him sergeant stripes and a rifle and told him to report to Southampton. He doesn't belong here. He knows it. The paratroopers know it too. They call him Pops when they think he can't hear. Some call him the clerk. Not cruel, exactly. Just factual. He moves different than they do. Careful, methodical. No wasted motion. He triple-checks equipment. He studies maps until he's memorized every village name. He writes everything down in a small notebook he keeps in his breast pocket. His philosophy is simple. Keep your head down. Follow orders exactly. Bring everyone home. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. The war doesn't need more heroes. It needs men who survive long enough to see Philadelphia again. Philadelphia, Helen and the girls. Margaret is 7 now. Susan just turned 4. He carries their photograph in a waterproof pouch next to his heart. Helen made him promise before he shipped out. "Promise you'll be smart, Jimmy. Promise you won't do anything brave." He promised. He meant it. But now he's crossing the channel with the Screaming Eagles, and someone decided he's responsible for 19 men. 19 kids. Most of them. Private Billy is the youngest. Turned 19 last week. Can barely grow a mustache. There's Kowalski from Brooklyn. Always cracking jokes. Miller from Tennessee. Quiet. Serious. Davis, Thompson, Rodriguez. Donovan memorized all their names the first day. Memorized where they're from. Who they talk about in their letters home. They don't fear him. They should probably fear their sergeant a little, but they don't. They respect him, though, because when everyone else rushes, Donovan thinks. When everyone else guesses, Donovan checks. When someone asks a question, Donovan has an answer. The ship's horn sounds, engines rumble. They're moving. Destination, Belgium. The Battle of the Bulge is 3 days old. Germans are breaking through everywhere. The 101st is being rushed to a town called Bastogne. Donovan doesn't know it yet, but in 4 weeks he'll be responsible for 47 German prisoners in a frozen farmhouse. And every careful habit, every cautious instinct, every promise he made to Helen will be tested in farmhouse. 30 seconds that decide whether 19 men live or die. The rain keeps falling. The ship pulls away from England. Donovan stays at the railing, watching the coast disappear, one hand pressed against the photograph over his heart. December 20th, 1944, 4:23 a.m. 3 kilometers northwest of Bastogne. The forest is black. Oberleutnant Friedrich Müller moves through frozen trees with 47 men behind him. They're supposed to be attacking the American perimeter. They're supposed to be part of the great offensive that will split the Allied armies and turn the war around. They're supposed to be winning. Müller is 23. Philosophy student at Hamburg University before the Reich, decided it needed him more than Kant did. He didn't want to be an officer. He wanted to finish his dissertation on Schopenhauer's ethics. But the Wehrmacht doesn't care about dissertations. They gave him a Luger and 47 lives and told him to go kill Americans in Belgium. He's been in combat for 8 months. Long enough to know the truth. Germany is losing. The Eastern Front is collapsing. The Americans have unlimited ammunition, unlimited fuel, unlimited everything. This offensive, this desperate gamble in the Ardennes, it's not a masterstroke. It's a death rattle. His men don't know that yet. Or maybe they do, and no one wants to say it. Feldwebel Werner, his sergeant, is 19. Gefreiter Braun just turned 18 last week. Half the platoon is teenagers. The other half are men who survived Russia and got sent here to die in a different kind of cold. Müller checks his watch. They're supposed to attack at dawn. Support an assault on the American supply lines. Simple mission. Simple orders. But nothing is simple when you're walking through darkness, knowing every step might be your last. The ambush happens at 4:31 a.m. Muzzle flash erupts from 3 sides. Americans, hidden, dug in, waiting. Müller's platoon walks directly into the kill zone. Men start falling. Braun goes down first, screaming. Werner takes cover behind a tree, returning fire, shouting orders Müller can't hear over the chaos. Standard doctrine says fight through the ambush, break contact, retreat. But Mueller sees the tracers converging from 3 directions. He sees how many are dying. He does the math. 10 dead already. Another 15 wounded. Completely surrounded. No reinforcements coming. Fighting to the last man accomplishes exactly nothing. He makes the decision in 5 seconds. The hardest 5 seconds of his life. Waffenruhe! Cease fire! Werner stares at him. Herr Oberleutnant! Waffen fallen lassen! Drop weapons. We can't. That's an order. Mueller stands, raises his hands, shouts in broken English he learned from forbidden American novels. We surrender! Don't shoot! We surrender! The firing stops. The forest goes silent, except for the wounded moaning. American soldiers emerge from positions Mueller never saw. Rifles pointed. A sergeant approaches. Older man, careful movements, eyes scanning for tricks. Mueller drops his Luger in the snow. His men follow. 47 weapons hitting the ground. 47 men who might live to see tomorrow, because their officer chose surrender over a meaningless death. The American sergeant, Donovan, Mueller will learn his name later, gestures with his rifle. Hands behind your heads. Move slow. Mueller translates. His men comply. They are marched through the forest as prisoners. Mueller keeps thinking about Hamburg, about his dissertation, about whether surrendering makes him a coward or the only rational man in an irrational war. He doesn't know it yet, but in 3 weeks he'll be standing in a farmhouse with a Luger pressed against this same American sergeant's spine. And the choice he makes then will be the opposite of the choice he makes now. The snow keeps falling. The prisoners keep walking. The war keeps turning men into things they never wanted to be. December 22nd, 1944. The farmhouse is 4 miles north of Bastogne. Stone walls, collapsed barn, shattered windows covered with canvas. Donovan's orders arrive at noon. Guard these 47 prisoners until transport comes. 2 days maximum. Maybe 3. Keep them fed. Keep them contained. Don't let them escape. Transport never comes. Day 1, Donovan establishes the routine. Germans sleep in the main room, guarded in shifts. Americans rotate. 6 on watch, 12 resting upstairs. The prisoners stay compliant. They're cold, exhausted, grateful to be alive. Most don't speak English. They sit against the walls, share cigarettes, stare at nothing. But one speaks English perfectly. The young officer, Mueller. Day 3. Donovan is checking the perimeter when Mueller approaches the doorway. Sergeant, may I ask a question? Donovan turns, keeps his rifle ready. Make it quick. The transport. When does it arrive? When it arrives. The roads are cut. We hear the artillery. It's getting closer. Donovan says nothing, because Mueller is right. The German offensive is punching through. American lines are collapsing. Roads to Bastogne are surrounded. No transport is coming. Not today. Not this week. Maybe not ever. Day 5. Christmas approaching. Someone finds a crate of K rations in the cellar. Donovan distributes them evenly. Americans and Germans get the same portions. Fair is fair. Some of his men complain. Kowalski especially. Why we feeding them, Sarge? They're the enemy. They're prisoners, Donovan says. We follow the rules. That night, Mueller approaches again. Thank you for the rations. Don't thank me. Thank the Geneva Convention. Still, you could have withheld them, some would. Donovan studies the young German philosophy student. Someone mentioned. Surrendered rather than let his men die. Where'd you learn English? Hamburg University. I read American novels, Hemingway, Steinbeck. My professors called it degenerate literature. Muller smiles faintly. I think they were afraid we might learn something. Day 7. The artillery is constant now, closer. Muller and Donovan stand near the window, watching distant flashes light the horizon. This offensive, Muller says quietly. It won't work. Too little fuel, too few reserves. Hitler throws everything at one desperate gamble. You shouldn't be telling me that. Why not? The war is over. Germany just doesn't know it yet. Muller exhales slowly. I studied Schopenhauer. He wrote that life is suffering, and the only escape is resignation. I used to think that was pessimistic. Now I think he was an optimist. Donovan doesn't respond. What can you say to a man who sees his country dying? You have children, Sergeant? Donovan hesitates. 2 daughters. I have a sister, younger. She's 16. Last letter said Hamburg is burning. British bombers every night. Muller turns from the window. We're all just trying to go home, aren't we? Yeah, Donovan says. We are. Day 9, December 31st. New Year's Eve. No celebration, no transport. The artillery is 3 miles away now. German artillery. The prisoners hear it. Their posture changes. They sit straighter. Whisper more. Muller stops approaching Donovan. At midnight, Kowalski asks the question everyone's thinking. Sarge, what if the Germans break through? What if they reach us? Donovan checks his rifle, checks the ammunition. Then we follow orders. We hold this position. We keep these prisoners secure. But he's thinking about Helen's promise. Don't do anything brave, Jimmy. And he's realizing that sometimes the war doesn't give you a choice. January 1st, 1945. A runner arrives at dawn. Corporal from Battalion HQ, out of breath, face gray with exhaustion. He pulls Donovan aside. Germans broke through at 3 points. We're pulling back. Bastogne's surrounded. What about transport for the prisoners? There is no transport. Roads are cut. You hold position here. Guard those Germans. Don't let them rejoin the fight. The runner leaves. Donovan watches him disappear into the snow. 18 Americans, 47 Germans. No reinforcements, no extraction. No plan. January 3rd. The prisoners hear the news somehow. Word travels even through walls, through language barriers, through the spaces between guards and captives. The Germans know their army is advancing. Donovan sees it in their eyes. The way they sit changes, straighter, less defeated. They stop avoiding eye contact. The whispering starts. Low voices in German. Conversations that stop when Americans approach. Muller participates now. The philosophy student who quoted Schopenhauer and talked about going home, he's different. He still nods to Donovan, but doesn't approach anymore, doesn't ask questions, doesn't discuss degenerate literature. January 5th. Private Billy pulls Donovan aside during his watch. Sarge, something's wrong. The prisoners are planning something. You speak German? No, but I got eyes. Watch them. They're organizing. Donovan watches. Billy is right. The prisoners coordinate their movements. Certain men stand near the weapon cache in the corner. Empty now, but they study it. Others position themselves near doors, near windows. They're not obvious. But they're deliberate. Donovan should act, should separate the leaders, should increase security, should search for hidden weapons. That's what a decisive commander would do. But Donovan isn't decisive. He's cautious. Maybe Billy is wrong. Maybe he's seeing patterns that aren't there. If Donovan cracks down on the prisoners without cause, it could spark the exact violence he's trying to prevent. Better to watch. Better to wait. Better to be sure. He does nothing. January 8th. German artillery shakes the farmhouse closer than before, definitely closer. The prisoners react. Subtle smiles. Quiet nods. Feldwebel Werner, Müller's sergeant, stands at the window staring toward the sound. He turns to Müller, says something in German. Müller nods once. Kowalski corners Donovan in the kitchen. We need to move them. Lock them in the cellar. Something. The cellar has 3 exits. We can't cover them all. Then we need more men, or fewer prisoners. We follow the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention doesn't mean shit if we're dead, Sarge. Donovan knows Kowalski is right. He also knows his orders. Guard the prisoners. Maintain control. Wait for transport. The rulebook doesn't account for the rulebook failing. January 11th. Morning. The artillery is 2 miles away. Maybe less. The Germans hear it. They know what it means. Relief is coming. Their army is almost here. Müller stands near the window. Donovan approaches. Last attempt at connection. You hear that? Müller doesn't turn. Yes. Still think the war is over? For some of us. Müller finally looks at him. Something changed in his eyes. Not hostile, just resolved. You should leave, Sergeant. Take your men. Walk away while you can. Can't do that? Then I'm sorry. Müller walks back to his men, sits among them. The whispering intensifies. That night, the artillery is close enough to count the shells. 18 Americans sleep in shifts. 47 Germans don't sleep at all. They wait. Tomorrow, everything changes. January 12th, 1945. 1:45 p.m. Lunch. The Americans gather in the main room. K-rations and weak coffee. 12 men eating. 6 on guard duty, scattered throughout the house. Donovan sits near the window, fork halfway to his mouth, watching the snow fall outside. The Germans sit along the far wall. Quiet. Too quiet. Müller is near the center. Feldwebel Werner to his left. 3 other men positioned at intervals. They're not eating. They're waiting. 1:45 to 3:45 p.m. Werner coughs twice. A signal. Everything happens at once. Werner drops to the floor. Pulls up a loose floorboard Donovan never noticed. His hand emerges with a rifle, American M1, hidden 3 days ago when a guard left it propped near the wall for 30 seconds. Long enough. 3 other Germans move simultaneously. They've been concealing improvised weapons under their uniforms, sharpened metal from the barn, a broken chair leg, stones wrapped in cloth. Not much. Enough. The nearest American guard, Private Miller, spins toward Werner, never completes the turn. A prisoner tackles him from behind. The rifle clatters away. Kowalski reaches for his sidearm. Feldwebel Werner already has the M1 raised. Don't! Kowalski freezes. Müller stands, walks to the corner where the Americans keep the weapons cache. 6 rifles, 4 pistols, ammunition. He picks up a Luger P08, his own Luger, the one he surrendered 3 weeks ago. Checks the magazine, still loaded. Donovan rises slowly. His hand moves toward his holster. Too slow. A German prisoner grabs his wrist. Another takes his rifle. Another his pistol. They know exactly what they're doing. This isn't panic. This is choreography. "Everyone on the floor!" Mueller shouts. His English is perfect. His voice isn't. It shakes. "Hands behind your heads, now!" The Americans comply. What choice do they have? One by one they kneel. Hands clasped behind their heads. 12 in the main room. 6 more dragged in from upstairs, from the kitchen, from their guard posts. 18 total. The Germans move through the house, securing every room. They find the remaining weapons, the ammunition, the radio. They smash it. 90 seconds. That's all it takes. 90 seconds to reverse 3 weeks of captivity. Mueller stands in the center of the room, 47 armed Germans around him, 18 disarmed Americans kneeling at his feet. He's breathing hard. The Luger trembles in his hand. This is the moment every prisoner dreams about. Freedom. Revenge. Control. Donovan kneels in the front row. He doesn't look at Mueller. He looks at his men. At Billy, white-faced and terrified. At Kowalski, jaw clenched in rage. At Rodriguez, at Thompson, at Davis. 19 men he promised to bring home. 19 men he failed. His hand moves subtly, checks his right ankle. The guards took his rifle, took his sidearm, but they didn't check his boots. Nobody checks boots. The small .45 is still there, hidden in his ankle holster since Southampton. Insurance. Helen told him to be smart, so he kept insurance. But what good is insurance against 47 rifles? Mueller walks between the kneeling Americans, stops at Donovan. "I told you to leave, Sergeant. I gave you a chance." Donovan finally looks up. "You could still surrender. End this now. No one else has to die." "No one else?" Mueller gestures at the window, at the sound of German artillery. "My army is 2 miles away. We hold you until they arrive. Then we go home." "You think they're taking prisoners? After Malmedy?" Mueller's face tightens. Everyone knows about Malmedy. The SS massacre. 84 American POWs executed in a field. After Malmedy, the rules changed. Prisoners became liabilities. On both sides. "Then we don't give them a choice," Mueller says quietly. He steps back, raises his voice, speaks in German to his men. Donovan doesn't understand the words. But he understands the tone. Mueller is giving orders, organizing, planning their next move. The Germans control everything. The weapons, the position, the situation. Donovan has 18 men and 1 hidden pistol, and no plan. The clock on the wall reads 1:47 p.m., 90 minutes until everything changes again. 1:47 p.m. The Americans kneel. The Germans argue. Feldwebel Werner wants blood. He paces near the window, rifle in hand, voice rising. Donovan doesn't speak German, but he understands tone. Werner gestures at the prisoners, gestures at his own men, makes a shooting motion with his hand. The message is clear. Execute them now. 5 other Germans nod agreement. Young ones mostly. Teenagers who spent 3 weeks as prisoners, who were humiliated, disarmed, defeated. Now they want payback. Mueller stands between them and the Americans. He's arguing back. His voice is quieter but firm. He keeps using one word Donovan recognizes, 9. No, 1:52 p.m. Billy is crying silently. Tears freezing on his cheeks. He's 19. He writes letters to his mother every Sunday. Last letter talked about coming home, maybe going to college on the GI Bill. Now he's kneeling in a Belgian farmhouse waiting to die. Donovan's right hand rests on his knee. His fingers are 6 inches from his boot. From the .45 hidden in his ankle holster. All he has to do is reach down, fast, draw, fire, hit Muller first. He's the leader. Then Werner. Then whoever's closest. But then what? 47 Germans? 47 rifles? If Donovan moves, if he misses, if he hits Muller but can't drop enough others fast enough, his men die. All of them. Billy dies. Kowalski dies. Everyone dies because Donovan took a shot he wasn't sure of. Helen's voice in his head. Don't do anything brave, Jimmy. 2:15 p.m. The argument intensifies. Werner is shouting now. He points at the window, at the sound of artillery. Points at his watch. Points at the prisoners. His meaning is obvious. The Wehrmacht is coming. We don't have time. Kill them and move. Muller pushes Werner back, says something sharp. Werner spits on the floor, but steps away. Muller approaches Donovan, crouches in front of him. My men want to execute you. Donovan meets his eyes. I know. I'm trying to prevent that. I know that too. But I won't be able to stop them forever. Muller glances at his men, at Werner especially. If we're still here when our forces arrive, if there's fighting, if anything goes wrong, they'll kill you. All of you. So what are you asking me? I'm not asking anything. I'm telling you how this ends. Muller stands, returns to his men. The argument continues. 2:43 p.m. Donovan runs scenarios. If he draws the .45, if everything goes perfect, if his first 3 shots hit 3 Germans, his men might have time to rush the others. Maybe. 18 against 44. Still impossible odds, but better than 18 against 47. His hand is so close to his boot. All he has to do is move. Just move. But what if Billy gets killed? What if Kowalski gets killed? What if Donovan makes the decision and 18 families get telegrams because he couldn't live with doing nothing? That's the difference between brave and smart. Brave men make decisions. Smart men wait for better options. But what if there are no better options? 3:05 p.m. Werner slams his fist on the table, shouts at Muller. The other Germans are nodding now. More than 5, maybe 10, maybe 15. Muller is losing control of his men. The debate is ending. Muller looks exhausted. He's been arguing for over an hour, trying to save American lives while his own men demand revenge. He's 23 years old, philosophy student, never wanted to be here, never wanted to make these choices. He turns to his men, speaks in German, long speech. Donovan watches faces, sees them shift, sees acceptance, sees resignation. Werner nods slowly. The others follow. 3:12 p.m. Muller picks up his Luger, checks it again. His hand is shaking worse than before. He's made his decision. Donovan sees it in his posture, in the way he won't look at the Americans anymore. Whatever Muller just told his men, it wasn't, "We're keeping them alive." Kowalski leans toward Donovan, whispers, "Sarge, if you gotta play, now's the time." Donovan's hand touches his boot, right above the hidden .45. His heart is hammering. Every instinct screams, "Wait, be sure, don't risk it." But there's nothing left to wait for. No rescue coming. No better option appearing. Just 30 seconds until Muller gives an order Donovan can't allow. 3:17 p.m. Muller walks toward the Americans, stands behind Donovan, presses the Luger against his spine, starts barking orders in German, and Donovan starts to smile. The wind had stopped. In the terrible silence, Mueller's voice came flat and final. "Wir erschießen sie jetzt." Donovan understood enough German to know. "We shoot them now." He felt the Luger's muzzle press harder against his spine as Mueller stepped closer behind him. The other guards raised their weapons. Across the clearing, Donovan watched his men process what was about to happen. Some stood straighter. Others closed their eyes. Then he saw Private Eddie Billy. The kid was 19, maybe 20, talked constantly about his parents' restaurant on Grant Avenue, about the smell of his mother's steamed pork buns, about how he was going to save up and expand the place when he got home. Now Billy's whole body was shaking. Silent tears tracked down his face, freezing in the cold. His lips moved soundlessly. A prayer, maybe? Or just his mother's name. Something fundamental broke inside Donovan in that moment. Not his training. Not his discipline. Something deeper. The part of him that could watch and calculate and wait for a better opportunity that might never come. His hand dropped to his side. Found the pistol tucked in Mueller's belt. 3 shots. The first took Mueller in the abdomen. The second caught him as he twisted. The third punched through his throat as he fell. Then everything became noise and motion and blood. The Americans rushed forward even as German weapons began firing. Henderson took a bullet slamming into a guard. Martinez drove his shoulder into another's chest. Someone was screaming. The air filled with muzzle flashes and the wet sounds of men fighting for their lives with hands and rocks. And anything they could reach. 30 seconds. That's all it took for the world to reverse itself again. When the shooting stopped, 4 German guards lay dead or dying. Henderson was on the ground holding his leg. 2 more Americans weren't moving, but the rest were armed now, breathing hard, staring at Donovan with expressions caught between shock and something like salvation. Billy was still crying, but he'd picked up a rifle. Donovan stood over Mueller's body, the Luger still in his hand, watching blood spread across the snow in patterns that looked almost deliberate. His ears rang. His hands didn't shake. He'd just killed the only man who knew where they were. Donovan sat in the snow outside the farmhouse with his back against the stone wall, staring at his hands. They still didn't shake. 14 Germans were dead. He'd counted them twice. The rest had surrendered immediately once they saw their officers down, dropping weapons and raising hands with the mechanical efficiency of men who understood when a situation had become irreversible. Inside, a medic was working on Henderson's leg. Someone had covered the 2 Americans who hadn't made it. Their names felt important, but Donovan's mind kept sliding away from them, returning instead to the weight of the Luger, the 3 shots, the way Mueller's expression had shifted from command to confusion to nothing at all. 3 days ago, he'd shared cigarettes with these men. Mueller had shown him a photograph of his daughter. They'd discussed the architecture of Bremen, the quality of French wine, the particular exhaustion of this war that seemed to have no end. Then circumstances had shifted, and they'd become enemies again. And now Mueller was cooling meat in the snow. Private Billy walked past, carrying ammunition they'd stripped from the German supplies. Donovan tried to meet his eyes. Billy looked away. The intelligence officer arrived on January 14th, a captain named Rothstein, with rimless glasses and a briefcase that seemed absurdly formal against the backdrop of frozen corpses and blood-stained snow. He debriefed each survivor separately, taking meticulous notes, asking the same questions in slightly different configurations, as if testing for inconsistencies. "The army doesn't need this embarrassment," Rothstein said on the final day, closing his briefcase with a decisive click. "Captured guards overpowered by their prisoners. Questions about why you weren't better secured. It reflects poorly on everyone involved." "Men died," Donovan said. "Yes, and their families will be notified appropriately, but the circumstances will remain classified." Rothstein adjusted his glasses. "You understand." Donovan understood. No commendation, no recognition. Just orders to rejoin his unit and a file that would be sealed for 50 years, maybe longer. The official record would show only that a prisoner exchange had occurred, that there had been complications, that all parties had eventually been returned to their respective lines. On January 15th, they were transported back to the American sector. Donovan watched the German countryside pass through the truck's canvas opening. The same forests, the same snow, the same war continuing as if the last week had been nothing more than a brief interruption in the machinery of killing. His hands still didn't shake. He almost wished they would. Donovan's daughters met him at the station with homemade signs and ribbons in their hair. His wife stood behind them, older somehow, her smile careful. They took him home to a house that smelled like pot roast and furniture polish, to a bedroom where his civilian clothes still hung in the closet, as if he'd never left. He never spoke about the farmhouse. Instead, he took a job with the Postal Service, steady, predictable, safe. Routes that never changed, letters that went to the right addresses, problems that could be solved by checking a map or asking a supervisor. He walked the same streets every day, and the repetition felt like a kind of prayer. But every December, he sent anonymous Christmas cards, 17 of them, to mothers and wives and children who'd never know why this stranger checked in year after year, asking nothing, offering only brief notes about weather and holidays and hope for the coming year. He tracked them carefully. Addresses that changed as people moved, marriages that shifted names, children who grew up and moved away themselves. In 1963, he received an invitation to Private Eddie Billy's wedding in San Francisco. The envelope sat on his kitchen table for 3 days before he opened it. His wife asked if he was going. He bought a plane ticket without answering. Billy was 38 now, heavier, with gray starting at his temples. His bride was a schoolteacher named Grace, with a laugh that filled rooms. When Billy introduced Donovan to his parents, the restaurant owners from Grant Avenue, elderly now but still working, he said, "This is the man who saved my life." People asked for the story. Billy looked at Donovan expectantly, giving him permission. Donovan refused. "Your son's a good man," was all he said. "You raised him right." He died in 1982, quietly, of a heart attack while sorting mail. His daughters cleaned out his desk and found a photograph tucked in the bottom drawer, yellowed and creased from handling. 18 soldiers standing outside a stone farmhouse, faces gaunt but alive, eyes reflecting something between exhaustion and grace. On the back, in faded ink, 7 words: January 12, 1945. The day I became who I needed to be. His oldest daughter framed it. She never learned the full story. The classified files remained sealed, but she hung the photograph in her hallway where she'd see it every morning. Her father's face young and haunted and somehow complete, surrounded by men whose names she'd never know, but whose presence seemed to explain everything about the quiet way he'd lived the rest of his life. A guardian who carried his burden without complaint. A postman who always delivered.